Good morning. Good morning. Welcome back to another episode of Off the Record with KyleSellsBiz, where every week we bring you an expert on different aspects of how to grow your business, how to prepare your business for exit, or how to prepare for an acquisition. Appreciate you guys tuning in. We are streaming right now on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Be sure if you have any questions or comments, you can enter it. Any questions for our guests? There should be a chat function where you can share your questions. This week I have a very special guest on a topic that I love: sales and revenue and how to grow your business. I'm excited to have John Noonan with us today, and we're going to be talking about boosting your sales for M&A success, the power of fractional sales leadership. How you doing, John?
I'm doing great, Kyle. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I'm excited to have you here because I mean your background, your pedigree, and the knowledge you have not only from a corporate level but working with small businesses and larger companies. I mean, it's something is very prudent, especially in a time where there's a lot of uncertainty. Right, sales and revenues is the livelihood of all businesses. So, they want to get a little bit your background and what got you to the point where you're the president of Growth Plan Partners. And just wanted to learn a little more where we got to where you're at today. So if you want to maybe kick things off and start from right there, it'd be great.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Kyle. Yes. So close to 35 years in corporate America. Started with a big $2 billion company, which was great. Avery Dennison, a printing and packaging and labeling company. But it was great because I went there as a salesperson and spent 6 years there and decided I wanted to be a sales leader and actually got training for that and built my first sales team and really enjoyed sales leadership for the rest of my career. But it's a funny story because we laugh about small and mid-sized businesses. Kind of the mortal sin that we see made over and over again is let's take our best salesperson and make them the sales manager because that's what we're supposed to do. And it rarely works, but that's a specific case. So anyway, after many years there, I got lured away into some other printing and packaging companies and actually ended up as the CEO for about 2 years of a $40 million screen printing operation, which ultimately got sold to private equity. So that was my first entree into private equity and how to sell a company. And it was Citicorp Venture Capital back in the day that long doesn't exist. But from there, I kind of stayed involved in companies that were owned by private equity. And was part of the executive team, having a small fractional ownership position, but obviously that keeps you involved in all areas of the business, right? Not just your specific specialty that you do for them. But I enjoyed building high performance sales and marketing teams, for many private equity held companies, some as big as, hundreds of millions of dollars and, bought and sold several times throughout my career. So I kind of know what the equity world is looking for when they want to make an acquisition. And I also have seen, how people have fooled buyers, and so I bring a little, direct experience to the table in that world for sure. But after 35 years of doing that for several companies, decided 3 years ago to go out on my own and started Growth Plan Partners. But I am also an affiliate of Sales Acceleration with an X, which is a group of about 200 of us highly vetted sales professionals, have at least 20 years of sales leadership experience. And we pool our knowledge, our tools, our best practices. So, and quite often today, we're actually co-advising. I've called in some advisors for my clients simply because they came out of that industry and thought they would bring, a little bit more, a little bit quicker. And I've been called into clients as well like that. So, but basically, today I act as a fractional sales leader for my clients. So either coming in to, evaluate the current situation and what needs to be done, infrastructure, if you will, to make sure that they're built for a potential sale or, whatever their goals are, making other acquisitions, et cetera. Or they just, have become stuck, which we see a lot in this industry, right? Great product, great idea, comes to some level. Actually, this year, for whatever reason, I had 3 $20 million clients, right? That for 3 years have just floated around that 20 million mark and could never seem to break the glass ceiling. worked with them. And on average, my clients and sales acceleration clients are up 20 to 35% in the first year. It's a matter of getting in the proper processes, procedures, CRM and recording devices, dashboards. And then, of course, we help with evaluating the sales team, hiring and firing where necessary, and making sure, we have the team built and ready for success. So hopefully that gives you a flavor.
Yeah, I appreciate that, John. I mean, your background, speaks for itself, speaks numbers. So a couple of things to unpack there. In the beginning of your dialogue, you mentioned about taking your best salesperson and thinking they're going to be a great sales manager, right? The difference between someone that's a producer and someone that is a manager of producers, right?
Right.
And I've seen in some cases where companies actually have lost that top salesperson when they had made that switching them to management, right? Wasn't a good fit for them, and it jeopardized the company, and now they have to go out. I've also seen where companies sometimes they hire down, they add salespeople to their team, and each person they add, it should increase, right? As far as the performance goes, bringing in better quality salespeople, but not having a great manager to identify the right skill sets needed, it could essentially bring down the aggregate performance of the entire team.
Absolutely.
So it's that manager, that leader in that position has to have some really special skill sets. I also love that you talked about working in the private equity space. I want to hear a little bit more about that, but I'm gonna get to that in a second.
Okay.
There are a lot of roles right now and that are more fractional of sorts, right? And what you're doing, your fractional sales leadership. Talk more about what that looks like and explain what your role is in that fractional time that you're working with the CEO and the business.
Sure, absolutely. Well, again, a lot of the clients, may have a sales leader. They don't understand whether they're the right leader or not. I may be called in to kind of work with that leader, help evaluate their skill sets, and potentially train them, which we do as well. I have we have a certified sales leadership designation and a training system around that where I can help the current sales leader. But we would do a lot of assessments as well. We use a lot of different assessment testing that's out there today. Just to go back to that point that you mentioned again, that I brought up about the differences in personalities. I mean, again, a sales leader generally has a very different personality profile than an individual contributor, or what we may call, a hunter salesperson, which is what a lot of people want to hire. They want to hire hunters, but business owners tend to not be great hirers of salespeople. They tend to hire people that are like them or that they like, as opposed to someone that can do the
That's
job.
correct.
And, we help define what the role should be, whether it's a hunter, a farmer, whatever needed. We can help write the job descriptions, do the interviewing, and then assessment testing to make sure you bring the right people on board. So then the couple of ways I can work is, again, if you have a sales leader, I'm happy to work with them. But a lot of times what tends to happen is just as you said, they bring in this leader, they frustrate them, and they lose a good salesperson because they didn't know how to lead. They didn't get any guidance or training on how to manage.
Pretty common.
And a successful person just felt stuck and leaves the organization. So that's where I get called in a lot, where the business owner, the leader, the COO, the CEO has sales reporting to them, right? And they're overwhelmed. They're putting in their 70 hours a week and they're pulling their hair out, trying to manage the business and manage the sales team. And again, they don't have the skill set either. There was a great line I heard the other day. Somebody said, people don't go into business because they're good at business, right? They're good at something, whatever that is, a skill set, managing, making something, whatever, but they learn all the elements of business and they get good at a few of them, but no one can be expected to be good at all of them. So I think the best leaders are the ones that say, here's my wheelhouse. Here's what I do well. I can be a visionary by doing this, this, and this, and I need to bring the right people in to help. So I can come in as a fractional leader and take over that sales team, and then build the proper sales process, procedure, set up dashboards, recording devices, to make sure everybody understands what they should do,
Mhm.
and we can keep track of all their activity. Additionally, I spend a lot of time working with the business owner and the management team at the beginning to sit down, because a lot of companies just don't do this well enough, to sit on the strategy side and talk about who is our ideal client, who do we want to go after, what
Mhm.
is our value proposition, what's our unique value proposition, and does every salesperson know it, and can they intelligently speak to it, to potential clients. So those are
Right.
the kinds of things that I'll bring together. And then again, I have a bit of a marketing background. As I said, I actually got my MBA in marketing and finance. So I don't do marketing implementation, but once I have that sales engine running, I can help the organization define a good marketing program to kind
Mhm.
of turn on the lead gen for this great team that we've built.
Right. And John, what's the key differentiator between a traditional sales leader and your role of fractional? I don't
Hmm.
want to assume you're working with
Sure.
that company at one day out of the week. And what's the key differentiator? Is it time that you're there or something
Well,
else?
yeah. Again, there's, someone just discussed this the other day. What's the difference between an advisor and a fractional exec? Okay. An advisor does just that. They come in and they advise, they tell you what they think you should do. Right. I think a fractional, I do the work. And yes, it is on a fractional basis. Okay. But I can give you all of my experience, both in my years of corporate service and what I'm doing today, at a fraction of the cost of what you would pay to hire somebody full time, right? So I can come in, I'm here to, again, develop the process systems, get everything in place, and then either hire my replacement from the outside or train somebody internally to take over that role. So yes, I generally work about 8 to 10 hours a week with a client. That's, it's not one day. I don't come in from 9 to 5,
Hmm.
multiple executive meetings, sales coaching, working on process and procedures, et cetera. And I'll even make sales calls with salespeople and infield coach them as well, if I feel that that's the best resource. And then, in general, I work with my clients 6 to 12 months on average, and that's where we have everything in place, the engine's humming, and it's time to get that full-time leader and decide whether they're coming from the inside or we go to the outside to bring them on board. But at least all of the systems, processes, and a complete onboarding plan, including a playbook, is ready to rinse and repeat once I leave the
Yeah,
organization.
and that actually leads into the subject matter of a discussion today about boosting sales for
Hmm.
M&A. When
Hmm.
you think of working with clients, work with a company that's about to go through some type of merger and acquisition event, either they're planning
Hmm.
to acquire a company and they need to evaluate that talent, or maybe even evaluate their own talent before they start bringing on new talent, or a company that's preparing for exit and want to make sure their business, they can maximize that exit and get a real good valuation for their company. Just talk about how someone in
Hmm.
your position and just fractional sales or leadership in general can help a
Hmm.
company get ready for a merger and acquisition type event.
Sure. Yeah, on the seller side or on the buyer side, again, we can represent either side, but it's a matter of determining, potential risk of a buyer, right, and what's out there, and what we call the quality of sales. Like you would do the evaluation of the quality of earnings, we're going to look at the quality of sales for our client, and we do a lot of work with private equity companies that are making acquisitions. Because as we know, and we joke about this, when someone goes to sell their company, they're going to do two things prior. They're going to do everything they can to increase the top line sales, correct? And they're going to do everything they can to decrease the expense line. Okay, so in order to maximize profit in EBITDA. Okay, some people do that ethically, and most people do, I believe. Some people do not. Okay, and what we're there is to determine, okay, if you're going, let's go to the buy side first. If you're going to make an acquisition of a company, um, do you completely understand what the quality of sales are today? Okay, is there an established sales team? Is there an established sales leader? Is there a process? Right? Are the sales all valid and repeatable? Okay, or have a lot of one-shot deals been taken to attempt to get that needle pointing up a little faster, type of thing? So we'll go in and we'll evaluate the people, the actual orders, the gross margins of business. We look at all the elements of potential risk for a client to make sure that, there's nothing hiding there. And then we also know that business owners of small and mid-sized businesses are often very involved in sales. And if they're going to be leaving the organization upon the transaction, okay, we help them evaluate what is the risk there, right? How involved are they with the customer set that they're working with today? Could there be any complications or loss of business, with that person leaving the organization? I know many times they stay on board for a payout and things like that, which is probably the most prudent thing to do to make sure that there's a safe and transition, of the business. But those are kind of the risk areas we want to look at. Are the sales real? Are they repeatable? Is there a sales process? Is there a dashboard to monitor all this? And do they have the right people that are going to be capable of continuing this, steady sales growth, after the departure, let's say, of a business owner?
Fantastic. You're tuning in with Off the Record of KyleSellsBiz. I have a special guest, John Noonan, with Growth Plan Partners. He's the president, and we're talking about how to boost sales for M&A success. If you have any questions, comments, be sure to put it in the comment box, and make sure you get your question answered. We're gonna give a big shout out to Marcello Arcelé, I hope I'm saying your name correctly, from Atlanta, Georgia. Thank you for being here. So you mentioned a lot there. So you talk about people, processes. You mentioned earlier about having everything documented, right? You may have a manager or a top leadership in VP of sales that has a process, but it's in his or her head, right? So now you're looking to acquire that company, and you may run a risk that that personnel, leaves the business and maybe even start their own operations or work for a competitor, right? So you want to have that process documented, right? So
Correct.
how involved are you? Are you in there as well? Actually drafting out all these processes, or you give the strategy, and the owner or the CEO has to bring in someone else, a writer?
No, wait, we will do the work for you. If you hire me on a fractional basis, I will do this work for you. You will end up with a complete playbook when I am finished, and it'll happen very quickly. We have the benefit of AI today to help us do that a little quicker. And we are developing now playbooks that actually have, an AI component whereby, we can search, all the elements or documents within the company, whether they're in databases or in their email trails or even in LinkedIn and relationships and things like that. So we've got some really cool products to enhance the AI capabilities, such that when a salesperson comes in, they don't just have to take home this, Bible of a document and start at page 1. They can start asking questions in a chat GPT type of format. What type of clients do we serve best? Have we ever, serviced a client in this marketplace, et cetera, et cetera. So they can use it for lead generation and prospecting, as well as a complete understanding of all the policies and procedures of the organization.
It's pretty fascinating, right, John? The technology that's at disposal these days, right? You could essentially load your entire company process into a system that has some sort of automated generation responses, and you can build out a playbook, and it's pretty fascinating. So you guys are working on your own proprietary system, so that's a value add of sorts that you have for clients that you're working with. You mentioned before that you've been part of multiple M&A events. Can we share like a story of a company either on the buy side or sell side that by using a fractional leadership approach that you offer, that helped that business?
Sure. I'll give you a bad, and then I'll give you a good.
Yeah, we love the war stories too, John.
First, the war story. So I was actually with a company, I won't mention the name, and our private equity company had purchased us. We were about a year into the transaction, and they came to us one day, the management team, and say, "Hey, we bought another competitive company," and we're like, "Oh, you're bidding on one?" "Oh no, we bought it. It's done." And we were flabbergasted that they didn't come. Why would you not come to us, a business, just to ask us our opinion? We've all been in this business for 20 years. In any event, they felt like they were getting a great deal. They wanted to keep this quiet and quick. So they went ahead and bought what they thought was a $40 million top line with a 20% EBITDA return company. Okay. I happened to be the closest geographically after the company was purchased. So they said, you go down and find out what we bought, So I went down as kind of the sales leader to kind of figure out what was going on. And to my point, the first thing is I had the org chart, and I said, oh, I see Linda here as the head of marketing, and the woman at the front desk is Linda. And I'm like, are you the head of marketing? And she giggled and said, well, no, I'm the receptionist, but they put my name down there, because they wanted to fill the box. So in any event, horror and war story that could have been prevented. Nowhere near that kind of volume after cleaning out the house and taking care of some unscrupulous dealings. Huh?
No due diligence on HR operations at all.
Oh, I'm sure they did a little bit of that, but they definitely didn't do it on the sales side. And we had a lot of company. Again, there was some indiscretions there that had to be addressed. Some people that had to be let go for unscrupulous, activity. We'll just say it that way. But the bottom line is they ended up with about a $20 million top line company. With about a 10% EBITDA return after paying all this money for it. So we all believe it could have been prevented. So that's the horror story. On the good side, we have a multitude of companies that we've worked with, that have utilized our services to go in and assess the risk, and a lot of them have to do with, again, the sales owner. I mean, the business owner being very actively involved in the entire sales process and sales management and what's going to happen. Okay. And seeing that there are not enough systems in place. They don't have the right people in place. And again, that ownership is far too involved in the customer base. So it was coming in and working with the client to actually build a sales team that really didn't exist. It was the owner and one extra person that did a little bit of work for the owner, but actually bringing in a sales leader and bringing in 2 salespeople to jumpstart the business with the owner through their buyout period and then eventually take over. And again, we maintained sales levels, the sales growth levels that were expected, which at the time were about 15% and with great success.
Oh, that's fantastic. Great job on your part and your team. Now I'm going to pick your brain now. I want to, we talk a lot about, putting that playbook together, tracking metrics and putting together right team and people and processes and evaluating talent on the acquisition side. So for business owners that are watching this right now, what are some effective sales strategies that they can implement right now to boost their sales?
Yeah. Well, first thing, there needs to be a sales process, right? That needs to be defined. And one of the one of the things I may not have mentioned, but when we start to work with a client at Sales Acceleration, we give the business owner or the business leader an assessment to kind of tell us where they think they are today, just by telling us, do you do this? Do you do that? Do you have this? Do you have that type of thing, right? So it gives us perspective, and we let the business owners tell us what they are and are not doing, in the environment today. And I was actually just pulling up some of that stuff. And we've done I think we do about 2,400, 2,600 of these assessments a year. And then our CEO at Sales Acceleration takes this out on the road and kind of, talks about, again, the state of sales, if you will, for small and mid-sized businesses. And the majority of business owners rate their sales elements as poor. Okay. I think it's like 78% rate themselves as poor in things like sales strategy, sales methodologies, their sales organization, and their sales analysis, right? So there are some very basic things that we can do and show them how to do to get started. But one of the most important things is to start with the sales process and make sure you have a CRM system. So back to this assessment, to this day, and this still blows my mind, as many companies as we've dealt with, to this day, I think it's still something like 48% of small to mid-sized businesses that we've assessed either do not use or do not have a CRM system.
What's the reason? That's like really blows my mind. And there are actually some companies, John, that don't even have websites. That's like freaking just. I'm like, I just still don't get it. What's the reason and what's the data on that?
Yeah, well, if I look at my client bases and the ones that didn't have them, there's a couple of reasons. Number one, they just feel like so much of this is personal sales, and why do we need to share it amongst the company? So that if a good salesperson can keep track of their
Yeah.
needs and their prospects, the company just says, we don't care how you do it as long as you bring us the sales. Okay. Which just, again, amazes me. And then in another situation, we went to a company and, they have an ERP system that they claim has a CRM module. But as soon as we get there, we realize nobody's using it. So all they really have within within their ERP system is a Rolodex, right? Yes, they have a list of customers, maybe
Yeah.
prospect names, but they have no methodology for tracking the communication and the process for working with the client.
And there are some really successful companies that don't have don't have a process to keep track of. So you spoke with a client today. When do you follow up and have all that tracked in the CRM?
Hmm.
And I mean, to each their own. But there's a lot of room for improvement there.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
let's talk more about on the developmental side of things, right? So you may have either a salesperson or a sales leader or a manager um, that is not performing at their full potential. What do you do in a case like that?
Hmm.
What's typically
Okay. So, yeah.
they're not hitting their numbers.
Yep.
What's the process there?
Okay. So process number one, we're going to find out if they are, programmed for sales. Okay. Do they have any formal sales training? Have they been doing this for a while? Do they have the propensity for it? And I'm probably talking some kind of assessment and personality profile assessment. All right. Do we
Mhm,
have the
mhm.
right kind of person that is capable? If we do, then obviously, we can help with training and things like that. But what a lot of people don't do with salespeople is first determine, what is your sales and buying cycle. Okay. I mean, if
Mhm.
you have a product that you should be selling 5 a day, it's pretty easy to keep up on whether the salesperson is doing their job or not. But if you have a high ticket item where the average sales cycle is 6 months, okay, you hire a new salesperson, theoretically you don't really expect a sale for 6 months, right? They're going to have to get in there, meet them, convince them, take them through
Mhm.
demos, sales, forecasting, all this kind of stuff. But so what you need to do there is you need to develop matrix that you can measure on pre-sales activities. Okay.
Mhm.
Because sales in essence is a bit of a math formula. Everybody kind of knows once you get to the estimating stage or proposal stage, how many estimates we did and how many we won or lost, right? That's easy.
Mhm.
That's kind of, post sale, if you will. But the pre-sales activity is, the number of outreach calls, the number of
Mhm.
presentations made, both in
Mhm.
person and online type of thing. The
Right.
number of meetings that were put together, and the number maybe of samples that were sent, depending on your business, things like that. That pre-sales activity needs to be documented, measured, and matrix need to be formed around it, and KPIs, because that's
100%.
really the only way you can judge a new salesperson coming on, when you don't have an expectation of them making a sale for a period of time.
Now, uh, if you already have that process operational with your current salespeople, you can actually have some benchmarks, right? So,
Correct.
what do you do in a case where this new salesperson come in and it was 6 months sales cycle, and six
Hmm.
months come, they're not hitting the mark. 9 months, 12 months. Are you coaching and mentoring the salesperson, or are you in that philosophy of hire slow, fire fast? Like what do you do to help that person in
Yeah.
that particular role?
Okay. Well, to your last point there, definitely, hire slow, fire fast. Okay. And that's where these activity metrics make so much sense. And even if we don't have a history, I myself, in conjunction with, my team at Sales
Mhm.
Acceleration, we have some pretty good industry averages that we can start with. Okay. That we expect 10 calls a day, 5 meetings a week, whatever it
Mhm.
is. And we're going to put them on that activity, matrix and KPI target. All right. So we should know long before 6 months whether we've got the right person in place or not. I don't think
Mhm.
we're ever going to get to that point where we're out there and go, oh my God, we hired the wrong people 6 months later. We're going to be walking through these activity metrics and making sure that, those are being achieved, and that those will then achieve sales, you've got a much higher probability at that point.
No, John, the companies you're advising, these sales leaders and salesmen and women, are you working primarily in a W-2 environment where they're employees of the organization, or you also apply the same metrics for 1099 subcontractors of the company that are?
Yeah. Nine times out of 10, my clients are B2B and have, W-2 employees.
Yeah.
That's obviously the easiest way. I have worked with a couple of clients that have 1099 reps. It's a different world. And
Yeah.
the ownership has to understand that too. I mean, you really don't have any, actual control over these folks. So it's a matter then of providing a lot more incentives for them to put more of their effort in your company.
Yeah.
So I think then you're probably in more of a gamification type of sales management role,
Yeah.
right? You have
I
to make
agree.
it interesting. You have to make it exciting. You have to show them, the extra money that they can make, types of things. So it's more difficult for sure. If possible, we'd like to show clients that they can get to a W-2 format and probably do just as well or better in the future.
That was actually going to be my next question, John, because in a situation where you have a private equity group or a strategic looking to acquire a company, and now you have these top salespeople that are contractors, and an employee
Right.
has the real ties to that business. They can leave when they want, and they can start their own sales business operation under another company's banner. So in a case where you're advising a buy side client and they have a couple rock stars that are just 99s that are servicing that potential candidate company to be acquired,
Yep.
how do you address that situation?
I personally would approach them to see if they would be willing to come on board full time.
Yeah, but at that point, you're probably not engaged yet, right? Because you're still, the company has been, let's say you're in early talks of acquiring the company, you probably don't have contact with those employees. So I'm assuming you're advising your client, the CEO on the buy side, to start having those conversations with the seller, that we probably need to have either these contractors be converted to W-2 upon, prior to closing, or at least having some conversations to lock them in some capacity, right?
Absolutely. Or some period of time, at least, to, where they agree to represent the company for a year or something like that upon a transaction. And then they'll get some bonus, or something like that, some incentive for them. It obviously needs to be on a case by case basis, but that's a huge risk. Yeah, it's absolutely a huge risk.
We have been involved in a couple situations like that. It's a huge deal breaker, right? And especially now, there's no non-competes anymore, right? So
that's the thing. You can still have non-solicitations,
right,
which is, you don't want anybody out pirating your business. Okay. And you can put a stop to that. But the non-competes are just a waste of paper that just get lawyers rich. So
right. John, anything that we have missed, or that is worth mentioning
some things that I think companies can start doing on their own too. We kind of have the top 10 things that companies should make sure that they're doing. If they're not, again, having this defined strategy, spending some time on that, defining those goals and KPIs, right? Please get a CRM system. I mean, they're so inexpensive today. 20 to $30 a person, type of thing. It's insane not to have that, because that will measure all the activity if used properly and synced with their emails and calendars. It'll take care of all that activity metrics measurement for you, and becomes your forecasting model too. So it's a critical tool. Even if you just bring somebody in to get that set up, if you don't have one, I think that's got to be your number one priority. And then you need to have weekly meetings with your sales team. This isn't a haphazard thing. This is not throw them into the pool and hope to God they can swim. You'll never run a good business that way. You have to invest in your people. And I am a true believer that selling is a team sport. Okay. It's like any other team sport. Okay.
Yeah.
You need to have team meetings. You need to entice salespeople to help one another. And you will see that they will. Good salespeople want to engage and help their fellow salesperson as well, knowing that they're going to get some help on the back end when they need it. Okay.
Hmm.
And then, again, conduct sales training if it's needed. If your people, you can't just leave them out there and expect them to continue to grow on their own. Okay. So at least offer them the opportunity to go out and find training or bring it in and get some good sales training done. And that's also so that everybody's speaking the same language, like your account managers or customer service people should participate in that training as well. Okay. Again, leverage the technology that's out there. Okay. Show them how to use LinkedIn. I mean, even good LinkedIn profiles are critical, because we talked before about websites and a website, people are going to go there right away to determine what the company can do. And if it's right for them, they're also going to go to the salesperson's LinkedIn. Are they the right? You need to have your salespeople write their profiles as professionals in the industry, not as somebody looking for a job. Okay.
Right.
So,
Right.
and
Right.
that's
Good
and
point.
that's critical. So we can help with that. Again, building this playbook is critical across the way. Make sure you have the right people in the right seat, get them assessed, and then finally, make sure you've got good comp plans. One of the ones I hear a lot from business owners is, I don't know about this sales team. I pay them a ton of money and they're not doing what I want them to do. Okay. Well, obviously there may be some process issues, some understanding issues, but that tells me that there's a comp issue as well, right?
Hmm.
Because most salespeople are going to do what they need to do to make money, and if they're not doing what you want them to do, you've probably left them on an old comp plan. When you're hiring salespeople, you pay them a little extra, you let them hold on to that. Comp plans have to be designed to make sure that your hunters stay out there hunting and
Hmm.
they don't get dumb, fat, and happy, right? And just get to some income level that they're comfortable with and then stall.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I can help with that as well. So those are some of the things to look at right away. To put some effort into.
I love that. I have a question for you. When it comes to recruiting and sourcing talent,
Mhm.
what's your philosophy? Finding folks that are willing to learn and go out there and work their butt off and bring in business, even though they're not knowledgeable or have experience in that space, or
Mhm.
do you believe in finding already successful, talented salesmen and women and leaders and having them adopt to the company's approach in doing
Yeah.
business?
Personally, the fastest way to bring someone up to speed is to find someone with, that's successful, has good selling skills to the end client that you want to serve. Okay. They might not be selling your product. So let's say, I don't know, you sell cleaning supplies, right?
Hmm.
I would be comfortable bringing somebody in that sells equipment maintenance products,
Hmm.
type of thing, because they're selling to the same customer base. They have
Yeah.
relationships with this, with people. They understand what the goals and objectives and values are of the end use client, their
Yeah.
ideal client profile.
Yeah.
That's going to be your fastest person to come up to speed. You can teach them your business. You can teach them your product. I know some business owners will be cringing at that, saying, I've spent 20 years developing this. You can't learn it overnight. And I understand that. There's going to be product training, systems
Mhm.
training, whatever your offering is training. I get that. But give me the person that's got the selling skills, that knows and already has relationships in the markets you want to serve.
Mhm.
That's going to be your best investment.
Got it. So you also mentioned the assessments, which we
Mhm.
use as well with our company. We assess everyone that comes in,
Mhm.
and it's very helpful to advise any company that's looking to hire talent to this, because a couple of them out there that you can utilize, because
Yep.
what's on a resume and what's said in an interview sometimes not 100% accurate, right? And believe it or not, the technology does work, and if you have well, that's one question I want to ask you, John. Are you involved in the interviewing process as well, or no? That's more on the HR side.
No, no. If I am a fractional sales leader, I will write the sales job description. I
Yeah.
will work with the recruiting firm, and I will do the interviewing. Obviously, I want them to do some preliminary,
Hmm.
interviewing and weed out ones I don't want to talk to. But then I will do the interviewing and then only present to the business owner the ones that I think are the most credible.
And then what space are you in? What's your sweet spot as far as companies that you currently serve?
Yeah, my clients range from, anywhere from $5 million to about $75 million. That's kind of this spot that we see. Again, people get stuck, have the issues, things like that. Once a client gets to, about 75 million, generally they're going to have their own sales organization built. They're going to have some investment into a sales leader and a process. But it's the like I said, this year, for whatever reason, $20 million was the magic number, but I've done $5 million clients. It's kind of $5 million and up where it starts to make sense. They can afford us, and we can help take them to the next level.
Got it. And I know the answer to this question, but I do want to put it out to you. What are some of the trends you're seeing in revenue? So I'll give you an example. When I'm representing clients and I'm speaking with buyers that want to invest in a company, there's a lot of questions that are pretty consistent that these private equity groups and investors want to see in a business. And, one of them is, predictable revenue, having some sort of recurring revenue model. Are you seeing a huge trend in companies that, as opposed to, let's say, selling a cleaning system, for example, and okay, now we're going to switch the model that we want to start leasing these out and having these customers on a subscription base? Are you seeing a lot of companies now trying to have some sort of predictable revenue model, or just trying to churn more sales, day-to-day sales? What do you see?
No. You're absolutely right. We're looking to do a more predictable revenue model. They want monthly recurring revenue, right? If they could sell something on a, especially in the IT and the tech space, right? That's what you're looking for. You're looking for MRR, monthly recurring revenue in the services that you provide, type of thing. So yes, we talk to a lot of clients about trying to balance that, especially when you have a big ticket item that has a long sales cycle. The predictability of that becomes much, much less. So are there maintenance services? I've worked with companies and even in some of the private equity companies I worked for in my past life, I built maintenance organizations to stabilize the revenue of the company, because, I was in a business where, our product floated with construction, right? So when construction was up, a lot of our product was bought and used. When construction went down, we went down, right? And what are you going to do? Sit there but we figured out, if someone's not going to build something new or create something, they generally maintain what they have. So we created a full maintenance business with a monthly recurring revenue model to do just what you talked about. So you have to look at things like that too. You got to balance your business and your offerings.
Yeah, I think if it was one takeaway, I mean, the increase that you receive in valuation of your company by switching or incorporating some type of subscription, or I think one of the easiest analogies that almost anyone can relate to is in the automotive industry, where a lot of dealerships now are offering very attractive leasing programs, right? So as opposed to buying a car, right, which is a car is a big investment, high ticket item. Now you can lease the car out, and now you have a customer that's tied to. Most people lease cars, right? Every 3 years, they come back and get another one, right? It's probably the easiest analogy. And even though you may see a downturn in revenue in the short run, the upside as far as valuation is going to be significantly increased by having a captive customer that's locked into your subscription model. So if that's one takeaway, start looking at some of those processes. So, hey, John, it was a pleasure having you on today. Off the record with KyleSellsBiz. We were talking about boosting your sales for M&A success. We've shared a lot here, a lot of great content. I really appreciate you having on here. And for those that joined in and commented, thank you for your feedback, and appreciate you guys tuning in every week. John, any final thoughts, or you think we
if I can help anybody, free phone call. There's no obligation here. Or that assessment I talked about, I'm happy to give it to you and have a conversation about that and about your business. So please reach out to me. Again, there's no cost up front here. I'm happy to offer some free advice and at least point you in the right direction if I can help you in the long term. And the easiest way to get a hold of me is either through my LinkedIn, which you can find me pretty easy, or my email is simply jnoonan@growthplanpartners.com. jnoonan, growthplanpartners.com.
Thank you, John. We'll be sure to have your information in the show notes. Thank you for your time, and enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Appreciate you, John. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.